Good evening.
Good evening.
And Sadar Pranam to Pramod Parikar sir. So whatever I am today, I owe a lot to him. In fact, when I first came to Mumbai in '89, I was a very reluctant non-speaker, even mingler. I never dared to mingle with people because at that time I used to speak in two languages, both sounded like Tamil only, English and Tamil. Later on I picked up Hindi from Mumbai, even that sounds like Tamil only. Okay, so with that kind of a heavily accented English, I never dared to stand before any audience to speak. Okay, but he made me realize that actually the audience has to fear, I don't have to fear. Okay, so that's what happened. So shall we start?
Yes, sir.
So with salutations to Ram, we'll start Ujantam Ram Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Arukhi Kavita Shaka Vande Valmiki Kokila. So the Valmiki's source is what I have taken. Any lawyer here? Anybody who is pursuing law as part, chartered accountant? This one, right? It's always said you should read the Bar Act. Don't read interpretations. Interpretations are dangerous. Because interpretations are always biased, especially they are cognitively biased. I'll always try to look at things from my perspective, right? So I prefer to read the Bar Act, I prefer to read the original Valmiki Ramayana, so that it becomes easier. So what I've done is I just put up a small presentation with about 5 slides, 5-6 slides approximately, where I've drawn heavily from Valmiki Ramayana primarily. In fact, that note was prepared by me, I made a mistake where I said that Valmiki Ramayana mirrors Peter Drucker's principles. It's an atrocious statement. It should be other way.
Yeah.
I only made a mistake. It's like calling Samudragupta as Indian Napoleon. Napoleon lost wars, Samudragupta never lost wars. It is the height of telling Krishna is the modern Drucker. No, sorry. Okay, so that's why I modified that here. Drucker's principles mirroring the qualities extolled by Valmiki. I modified that here. So I stand corrected now, sitting and doing that. Okay. Very quickly, why Drucker? Because Drucker is a Mahaguru of management. Normally there are two kinds of gurus, one who observes what is happening, other one who visualizes what will happen. Drucker belongs to the second category. So in 1960s he said that information will rule the world. Plastic and information will rule the world. It's a phenomenal statement to make in 1960s, and it proves to be correct as well. So I have not taken all the principles what you talked about, only 5 principles I have taken. It is already there in the screen, I am not going to read it for you. But how Hanuman's acts actually is reflected in these 5 words. Let us see them quickly. The first one I want to look at here is that every time you go for implementing a project or trying to do something, the finishing is the most difficult thing. Am I correct? We start very well, but we don't finish. Because for finishing, you have to do a lot of small things. So it is not enough if you accomplish the main task. It is critical for you to add some additional tasks to complete what is to be fulfilled. It is beautifully put by Valmiki here. I am not reading it out again for you, nor am I reading it here. It is already telling what I told. So it is not enough to accomplish a main task. You have to identify some task which will not create a problem for the main task. So he has met Sita, had a long conversation, gave a great pep talk to her, and then he is about to go back. Then he said, hey, before I go back, it is important for me to meet this fellow and also communicate to this fellow how strong we are. So you have to do something which will make him realize it. At that time he thinks for himself, it is important that to accomplish the purpose I should also implement multiple small tasks. And these tasks should be very critical, realize that what way am I going to choose is also important. There is no single way to complete it. There are many ways to complete it. Which the most appropriate thing to do I take is what I need to look at. Meaning his whole focus is commitment to the vision of Rama. So he never wavered from that. So he wanted to do something which will be everlasting, which will definitely ensure that the original thing is not disturbed. We'll come to this what he exactly did 2 slides ago. So what to do? So he said, we'll do one thing, we'll fight with these fellows and then see whether we can try to meet Ravan. So he killed many people. I'm not getting into Akshay Kumar, everything here. Ultimately Indrajit comes. Indrajit what he calls, shoots him with Brahmastra. And Brahmastra, he has got a boon from Brahma that is not going to affect him, it will affect him only for a few minutes. So he allows himself to be tied by Brahmastra, and all the other warriors of Ravan, they tied him with ropes. In the process, they nullified Brahmastra also. But he said, no, this is a good opportunity for me to very comfortably go and meet Ravan. Otherwise, I have to go and search where this fellow is. So at least now this guys will take me along to this place. Therefore, he said, there's no point in showing a bravado now. I have to prioritize my action. The action I have to prioritize is, I should make them believe that I am afraid of this place. I should make them believe that I am absolutely terrified. And therefore, he said, he allowed the enemies to capture him. And when they captured him, he is very clear that I am not going to fight them. I am going to make them believe I am afraid of them. So he makes a loud noise to say that, hey, what are you guys doing? I am absolutely terrified now. So he is not showing his bravado there. He can easily come out of it, he can destroy the whole army also. But he never did it. Intention was not this. An effective executive has to prioritize his actions. The biggest challenge all of us face in a day-to-day organizational context also is the same thing. What is the prioritization? Should you do what is urgent or should you do what is important? We never touch what is important till that becomes urgent. Am I correct? And most often we waste our time in things which are not important but urgent. Identifying what is important and what is urgent is a critical part. That's the main problem I find in many organizations where we are always short-term focused. When you are short-term focused, your priorities can never be fixed. I am a strong votary against CEO of the company getting a variable pay based on profit of the year. If you expect the CEO to go take his salary based on the profit made in the year, never expect him to take any long-term decision. He will not compromise salary. It's one of the biggest flaws I find in many of the compensation schemes, especially for somebody who is at senior decision-making level for long-term decision-making, which in the birth is very bad. So the mastery morning. It is very important that we have to bide our time. We cannot keep on hitting it. We are not everybody is Rishabh Pant, right? It is important that we have to bide our time. Therefore, it is very critical, prioritization becomes important. He is biding his time. Third principle, building on the strengths, which is very important. Hanuman was crossing the ocean and he comes across multiple hurdles. He clears it one by one. At that time, a few birds were flying. They were talking to each other and say, hey, you know what, this man is so skillful. He has got 4 qualities which make it very unique about him. Yasyatvetaani chatvari vanarendra yatatava dhriti, drishti, mati, dakshyam, swakarmasu nasidati. Dhriti is courage. If you are an effective executive, you should have the guts to take decisions. Many times we always do upward delegation. Am I correct? Delegation is supposed to be next level, right? Upward delegation. Something. Correct? So, courage, dhriti, drishti, extremely important. Vision. Effective executive will have vision only when his boss has a vision. Ita raja tata praja. The boss doesn't have a vision, don't expect the executive to have a vision. So, but the vision of the boss is very important. He understands the vision. Drishti, mati, intellect. He's got the brain to analyze things. He's got the intellect to do things. Most important, 4th one, dakshyam, which is capability to implement. So it says that this person has got these 4 qualities of dhriti, drishti, mati, dakshyam. If it happens, so karma sunasidati. Nothing is impossible if you have these 4 qualities embedded in it. Right? Hanuman adds the 5th quality to this. The 5th quality he adds is a concept of anirveda. He was absolutely forlorn, disturbed. See how sad he is. He is searching everywhere, he couldn't find Sita anywhere. Absolutely disturbed. Abhi kya karu? So suddenly he realizes that I think I should not lose hope. One of the biggest danger is depression. Slightly digressing from sir what you said. Not in the context of digressing, in the context of this one. Okay. What he meant by depression here is that absolutely forlorn, absolutely lost out, I don't have anything else to do now, kya karu? So he says non-depression is a very critical quality. Anirveda Shriyo Moolam. Non-depression is the source of all wealth. Shriyo is not only wealth, any kind of good things. Anirveda Param Sukam. Anirveda is non-depression is absolute bliss. Anirvedo hi satatam. Only non-depression will accomplish everything. Sarvarteshu pravartata. So he talks about I should not be depressed now. Let me start focusing on what I can do. So therefore, the 5 qualities which really makes an effective executive is Dhriti, courage, Drishti, vision, Mati, intellect, Dakshyam, capability to implement, and Anirveda, non-depression. So this helps him in that context. Very critical. Taking responsibility. Taking responsibility, all of you know the great story of Hanuman going all the way to bring the Sanjeevi Garuda. At that time, it is also important in a good organization for an effective executive to perform, there should be some Jambavan there to recognize them. Am I correct? But the biggest problem happens in organization is, suppose a new kid on the block comes and tells the uncle, what I mean by uncle is the vice president, heading the department, sir, can we do this? Beta, तो पैदा होने के पहले मैं कोशिश किया है, नहीं हुआ, अभी नहीं होगा. Correct? This is the most dangerous hurdle for any implementation is experience. I am telling this from my experience. Okay. So the point I am trying to make here is that our experience is the most dangerous hurdle for any implementation, because we always try to go with the references, past references, the cognitive bias kills us. So typically Jamban says, Vibhishan comes and checks on anybody is alive. Jamban is alive. Jamban asks a question, is Hanuman alive? He didn't ask whether Ram is alive. He didn't ask whether Lakshmana is alive. He asked, is Hanuman alive? Why? If Hanuman is alive, everybody is alive. If Hanuman is dead, the war is lost. Not even the battle, the whole war is lost. Okay, so therefore he says, if he is surviving, even if the whole army is killed, it will be available. So an effective executive is a person capable of carrying that responsibility, not less like Atlas, but like Hanuman. Because Atlas struggled, he doesn't want to carry it ever. Am I correct? Okay. Adapting the challenges is very, very important. So when you remember the first slide I talked about, he was thinking about a lot of small things to do. There's no one way to do things, he said. Remember that? He thinks about 4 ways to do things. He says that, all of you know this, Sam, Dan, Ved, Dan. Am I correct? And the way he analyzes is beautiful. Shall I take Sam? No. Sam won't work because the negotiation is not practical with these fellows. What's the point of negotiating? They won't even come to the table. Okay, Dan? Dan also won't work. Why it won't work? It won't work because they got a lot of wealth. Look at this country. Look at the wealth strewn all over the place. So it is definitely not possible to convince them with wealth. Yeah. Shall we threaten them? No, they are arrogant. You can't threaten them. Okay. Now, we're proud of the strength strategy of sowing dissent won't work. Therefore, the only way is done. And therefore, he decides to do that. So there's no one way to do it. He talks about the 4 ways which can help him to do this. Adapting to challenges is an extremely important thing for an executive. Because many times we face a lot of hurdles. The same tool won't apply in every situation. If you start applying the same tool, if hammer is the only tool I have, every problem is a nail. If you have a headache, I will permanently solve it. Correct? Clearly solve it. So that's not the way I'm going to solve the problem, right? I need to have different options for solving the problem. And the options will emerge when you start analyzing it practically. Finally, Ravana was killed and he goes to welcome Sita to the fold. And Sita says, you are excelling in 8 factors. This is beyond Drucker. So what are the 8 excellences? You can slowly read it yourself. First and foremost is a keenness to listen to the discourse. We should first listen. Listening is the most critical skill. Anybody knows Tamil here? No, I won't go to Tirupur. Leave it. No. Okay. Second is
We have to do, not family.
Okay. So first I should have the keenness to listen to the spirit of the discourse, then I should listen to that. Then I should receive it. Once I receive it, I retain it. Once I retain it, I should think about reasoning it. Once I reason, I should look at the pros and cons. And finally, I should comprehend and realize the truth. Which is extremely important, 8 skills or 8 excellences required. And Sita says, you have those 8. And he has proved it everywhere. There is a word given for Hanuman called Vakya Kovida. Vakya Kovida means how you are able to be crisp in telling things. Like Shakespeare said, no, the brevity is a mother of wit or something like this, right? Hanuman is like this. When he saw Sita and comes back and he meets Ram, the statement he makes is something like this: Drishta Sita. He didn't say that, you know what, he went all the way there, and there is a demand there. If we start explaining these things, Rama would have got palpitations. Here is a guy who says, Drishta, don't worry, see, Drishta Sita, over, crisp. We talk about SMS these days. Okay, where we spoil English is a different issue altogether. But Drishta Sita is an absolutely phenomenal brevity in this. Am I correct? Most of the old sayings still live because of the brevity in that. So he's called Vakya Kovidam. He knows how to communicate things. So you can communicate well when you think well, analyze well, and retain it and put it back. Correct? Last words, final words on Hanuman sir. I hope I am on time. Okay. Again, you can read yourself. This is said by Ram. Sharpness, firmness. You can easily read it. Sanskrit is a reasonably easy language to understand. Tejaha, tejas, tejaha. Dhriti, yashas, yashas. Dakshyam, we already talked about it. Samarthyam, okay, competence. Vinaya, which is extremely important. This Vinaya is most difficult character to make. Last 3 days I was in Shabarimala. I was going through blessed to go through the longer route of forest, 44 kilometers. Our group had around 18 people. None of us discussed who his other person is. We all discussed who his other person was when we came back. One person is the CAO of a software company in US. We can't even say that he is a software company CEO. He's coming the top 1% earning in US. Okay, and there is a guy who is a director in a German company. You can't say he is a German company director, full of wisdom. And the group was something like, there is a film producer who's recently produced a film with Madhavan. We didn't even know that. The Vinay was palpable everywhere. Okay, it's a very phenomenal kind of a humbling feeling. It is not that, with Vidya, Vinay has to come. We normally say, he can afford to, he can definitely say all this nonsense. He cannot. We have got no right to say that nonsense. Vinay is the most critical skill for somebody who is going to be an effective executive. Okay, sorry, for a minute, for a nanosecond I'll move to Tamil and come back. There's a phenomenal poet called Bharati, Subramani Bharati in Tamil. He uses the phrase, Raudram Padagu, practice anger. Practice anger. Meaning you should not be angry, but you should practice anger. You should know when to show that anger. But the anger should be outwardly, but you should show the anger something. You have to practice ego, you have to practice anger. Vinay is the base for that. So he talks about that Vinayaha, Nayaha. Okay? Aurusham, virality, Vikramaha, prowess, Buddhi, intelligence. What a phenomenal combination for an effective executive. Am I correct? Of course, we can never get somebody like this who works without salary, willing to put his own tail on fire for his boss. Amazing character. It is very impossible to get an employee like this. If we can get something out of this, of all the things, I will prefer that Vinay. So I conclude this with this salutations to Ram. Let us all get that punya. Let us definitely cherish this. If some of you can pick up Valmiki Ramayana and have a look at it, that will be the great feedback for me. Thank you so much. I hope.
Excellent. I have one question.
Please.
Savita ma'am told me.
You want a slide?
No.
No.
Savita ma'am told about mythological character. So can you please elaborate? What is mythology? And there is lots of debate in the TV shows that mythology is not mythology; it's a real character.
See, the word mythology itself is a broad word.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest challenges we have, history and mythology is too intertwined, and we end up dubbing it as mythology. Okay. My mother went on a tour called Rama Anuyatra. She started from Ayodhya, went up to Sitamarhi and Nepal, then came all the way to Trail of Ram. Interesting thing is, whatever Valmiki Ramayana Shlok talks about is there in those places. Point number one. Point number two. There is a research report, if you are interested, you can Google and you can go to Google Scholar and search for it, which talks about the geography of Ramayana. Okay, there is another research report which talks about the botany of Ramayana, where they talk about whatever Valmiki is mentioned about the various places, the kind of flowers, the kind of fauna, is clearly you can even today trace it. Point number one. Point number two, we choose to call these characters as imaginary or real depending upon our convenience. When we want to criticize, we call them as real. Okay, when you don't want to criticize, we don't call them as real. Okay. So the question is very sensible, and there is mythology entangled in that, because a story writer always has got that liberty to do that here and there. But we have to go behind the basic incident and look at the spirit of the incident. I'll give a context here that will become easier for you. Throughout Ramayana, no murder happens in the presence of Sita.
Yeah.
And Ram ensures it every time. The first instance when Ram was trying to wage a war, battle against Karan, right? In fact, when my mother went there, she was talking about all those, the specific temples dedicated in that area. Somebody has to write it a story, that means he has to go there everywhere and then install it, right? It is installed for generations. And people have festivals around it also. In that case, he tells Lakshman, you take Sita away. I don't want her to see what's happening here. Okay. The reason he says essentially is that I don't want her to see, because as Lakshmi, she will pardon everybody. He doesn't want that to be pardoned. He has to do that punishment at that point of time. Okay. Now going a little bit further, Ravan has got 10 heads. What does it mean?
10 type of character?
Exactly, Buddhi. Yes, he is so brilliant. In fact, when Hanuman meets Ravan for the first time, he starts, oh, hey, what is this resplendent with radiance kind of a person he is? Ravan is a great, Pandit. Correct? And he knows Vedas, he knows the, scriptures very well. He transgressed. So however great he can be, if he transgress, he will be punished. Is the point. Okay, let's go further. You go to Sri Lanka, you'll find lot of those kind of remnants, not remnants, I'm not talking about archaeological remnants. The remnants of the kind of the story is still there. Okay. So, in my opinion, look at the spirit of the whole Itihasa. It is called not mythology, it is called Itihasa. As it happened. That is my humble submission in this case.
Thank you. Any other? Last question.
Again, my question.
Chanakya has to shoot some questions.
You mentioned everything, but I also heard about that Hanuman went there in Lanka and examines the army and the what we call that arms and ammunition that Ravana has in his on his side of army. You also examined the things.
He didn't do that deliberately. In fact, subsequently, when Vibhishana comes in, Ram was asking the opinion of everybody, should he take Vibhishana or not? At that time, one of the opinion Hanuman says is he can give us a better idea about the army, which very clearly say Hanuman didn't go with that intention. That's the way I see it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.